Hello, this is Angela with Progress Permaculture. It is a gorgeous sunny evening here in Portland, Oregon. Welcome back to Hausfrau Friday. This is a regular segment where I try to talk every Friday about my passion for sustainable living and my experience of more than 2 decades as a homemaker. There might be some chicken noise in the background of this video. I have a broody chicken who is out of the nest box and having a little bit of a temper tantrum, scratching and prancing around and being angry at everybody. And obviously it's 90 something degrees out, and so air conditioners are running, but hang tight with me. So for today's Hausfrau Friday, I have something a little bit different. As many of you know, I've been working on cleaning out my parents' house. They both passed away, and we are in the process of getting that house ready to sell. Sorting through their belongings has been really difficult, not just the sheer volume of things, but all of the emotions that dredges up when you go through the belongings of a loved one. My parents were fastidious and meticulous record keepers, and they preserved every document I think that ever crossed their path. Very organized. My parents had their tax returns all the way back to 1964 and journals and ledgers all the way back to 1964 as well. And so it just took a long time to sift through that. But in doing so, I learned a lot about my parents that I didn't really know. And I got kind of an insight into what things were like for them early in their marriage and early on from my mother before she had kids, when she was a full-time social worker, and then later on as she transitioned to being a homemaker and raising 3 kids and supporting my dad in his work and volunteering in the community. So what I want to show you today is a document that I found in the bottom drawer of their file cabinet way in the back. It came before I hit the very, very back, which included their report cards from elementary school and junior high. I found this file folder that was documents from when my dad was in medical school. He went to the University of Cincinnati Medical School in the late 60s. And I want to read you, I have it on my laptop here, I want to read you this University of Cincinnati College of Medicine document that was given to my mother, an award, I guess. It's a PhT award for putting him through. So that tells you where we're going. Let me read it to you all, and then we can talk about it on the other side. Okay, before I read this, I'm gonna need a beer. Okay, here we go, y'all. Keep in mind that this was when my dad graduated from medical school, so 1970. Okay, I think I am bolstered enough to read this. The University of Cincinnati College of Medicine, to all whom these presents come, greetings. Be it known that Sandra, that's my mother, has loyally and lovingly accepted the conditions essential to conjugal and collegiate helpfulness, in that she has patiently borne with her spouse in the pursuit of his medical education, assisting him with studying, turning down the radio low so that he might concentrate on his anatomy, keeping the baby quiet, preparing coffee for midnight cramming sessions, arranging textbooks, filling pens, ironing lab coats, canceling party plans, answering midnight telephone calls, working to supplement his income, and intuitively providing spiritual encouragement, thereby fulfilling the requirements of the degree of PhT, putting him through, entitling her to all the rights and privileges ascribed thereto, in witness whereof we affix our name in this seal. The 26th day of May in the year of our Lord 1970. Signed by the Dean of the Cincinnati Medical College and the President of the Wives Club of the University of Cincinnati Medical School. So when I found this, obviously I'm viewing it through my 2023 lens. And I know that life was very different in 1970 than it is now. I know that we've made a lot of progress as a society, even though there has been some backsliding here in America in the last number of years. what stood out to me reading that letter was how, from my viewpoint, it had an almost farcical air to it. It just seemed borderline insulting. I think it was meant with all sincerity at the time that it was written. My mother obviously thought enough of it to keep it in her records. I want to make it very clear that my mom was a full-time social worker, and also that my mom and my dad both made it abundantly clear to me when I was growing up, and to my 2 children of my 4 who have dyslexia, that my dad, who had pretty profound dyslexia, would never have made it through medical school if my mother had not assisted him with his studies, because he didn't have the accessibility tools that B and Hal have the ability to access today. And if my mom hadn't helped him, he probably would not have been able to get through medical school. They were both pretty transparent about that. So in that sense, my mother was a necessary support and an extension of gratitude for all that she sacrificed so that my dad could put in long hours in medical school is justly deserved. I have no doubt in my mind that my mother could have been just as good of a physician as my dad if she had wanted to do that. She was incredibly smart, incredibly driven, with incredibly high executive functioning and organizational skills. And there was nothing that she tried that she wasn't good at. But that's not what she wanted out of life. And so in reading this, I had like my initial knee-jerk reaction of like, this is a bunch of sexist crap. Like, it's just dripping with misogyny, conjugal and collegiate helpfulness. That women have an innate ability to offer spiritual encouragement, and that, it just smacked of it felt a little insulting. But then the more I thought about it, I thought there's nothing wrong with having the role of one partner in a couple be to support the other one while they are working on their studies or going through something difficult or applying themselves in some way. That's really laudable, and that's something that should be honored and cherished and acknowledged, that for many people, getting through medical school, graduate school, or difficult phase in their life that requires intense focus and study means that you have to set other things aside, and somebody has to pick up those pieces. If you want to have a high-powered career, somebody has to manage all of the other things that you are less able to manage, and that work is no less beautiful and worthy and vital because it's not paid. And so, if I remove kind of the chauvinistic language and tone of that, and I remove the gendered language from it, it's really a lovely sentiment. Like, the work you have done and the sacrifices you have made for your partner, and the way that you have supported your partner in chasing their dreams and achieving the goal that they have set out in front of themselves, I think is a really important thing to acknowledge, that nobody accomplishes something difficult on their own. They have a support network. So for me as a homemaker, and looking at my mother, who was a social worker, who was a college educated woman, who, as I said, incredibly intelligent and could have done anything else, that she had the freedom to pursue being a homemaker as her main vocation. She taught cooking classes, and she did a ton of volunteering in the community, and she worked off and on to help put us 3 kids through college. So I don't want to say that she was exclusively a homemaker. I've talked a lot about homemaking can be a part-time vocation. It can be a seasonal vocation as well. And for her, that was a huge source of pride and joy, that she was a homemaker, and that she found a lot of fulfillment in that. And she always said that to her, it was no shame, and it was something she was incredibly proud of, that she felt that she was saving lives through my dad, that she took care of all of the unpaid labor that had to be done to run a household and raise children and take care of kids' needs, and a commitment to the community. And that freed my dad up to work long hours and be on call so that he could literally save other people's lives. And so she viewed that as a team effort. And I thought at the time, like, that was kind of a strange way to view things, but really it's a pretty darn freaking progressive way to view things, and I think the right way to view things. That we don't do anything in isolation. Our achievements are accomplished with a support network and people making sacrifices, people that love us and care for us making sacrifices all around us. And that when one part of a household achieves something in a functional household where the members of that household are supporting each other, that is an accomplishment for everybody in the household to rejoice in and to feel pride that they helped their loved one get to that place. Now, let's set aside the very gendered language that's used. And also acknowledge the fact that I don't know even how many women went to the University of Cincinnati Medical School in the late 1960s, and if their spouses got a letter like this. I doubt very much. And I know that, the amount of overt sexism that women faced and that was very normalized in the culture was extremely different in the late 60s than it is now. I think for my mother to have a sense of pride and a sense of understanding who she was, what she wanted in life, and knowing where she was rightly due credit for her efforts. I think she was ahead of her time in many ways. And I think my dad knew very well that they were a team and that he couldn't have done any of this alone. And I think he was very good at acknowledging that. It does make me wonder today when folks are going through medical school or any other graduate school or any other difficult training. It does make me think about today what that's like for folks going through medical school. The rate of being married, I think, is much lower. How much more people struggle when they don't have a support network and they don't have a partner or a household where they share burdens and they share tasks and obligations. And how we could do things different as a society so that people aren't quite so isolated. And when they go to undertake these large projects, when they invest in their education, when they invest in their future, how can we support them as a society in that way? And how can we acknowledge that the work that homemakers have historically done to support typically men in furthering their career goals, increasing their security and their prosperity? How we can acknowledge that everybody deserves that kind of support, and that those of us who still choose to be homemakers are doing an invaluable, vital service for society. So even though parts of that letter initially I balked at a little bit, when I sat down and dissected it a little more and had time to kind of ruminate about it and think about it, I really thought, while very dated in many ways, what a really lovely sentiment to acknowledge that no one does anything by themselves. And when someone has a great accomplishment, that their partner has made real sacrifices and offered a real support for that person to get there. I think that's such an important thing, that in a society that continues to devalue homemaking, overlook the necessity of our role in the culture, I think that's something that we've lost a little bit, and it would be lovely to regain without gendered language, without a heavy dose of sexism to it. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below on what you think of this certificate that my mom got. What you think about the way that we as homemakers continue to fill those roles of offering a support framework so that folks can do other things, different things, and that makes our work even more fundamental to the running of our society and creating a resilient society. Or if you totally disagree with me, I would love to hear those thoughts down below too. Please don't forget to click like and subscribe, and be sure to check out my Patreon if you're interested in supporting this channel. Thanks.